Hey everyone, it's time for another live look at the astrology. Today is, well, this week, it's the astrology for August 8th through 14th, 2022. We got a lot to cover this week, and if you maybe remember last week, we certainly had a lot to cover last week, so that would have been the week of August 1st through 7th, and we had some pretty heavy duty astrology. I remember just like the psychic intensity and even the psychic intensity of trying to speak to you all last year. I just felt not last year, geez, look, I'm doing it right now. I've talked to you last week and it really felt very discombobulated, but it's some pretty intense astrology, and we'll talk about what that means and what that means for you and how you can work with this. And it's not, I don't think it's meant to be intense for inherently negative reasons. It's just meant to be intense to force a transformation and some sort of transformation. So yeah, we are looking at the astrology of August 8th through 14th. This is Empowering Astrology. Thank you all for joining me live. If you are watching live, I always love to hear where everybody is watching from. I'm a little bit of a nerd when it comes to places in the world, and it's pretty neat that we all gather at the same time. And I know a lot of you, because you write me or you're my clients, and you talk to me how you watch this on the replay. So yeah, even if you're watching on the replay, say hello, let me know where you're watching from. And it's something that I say all the time, but I think it really is important to stress this week. The astrology is 50%. You are the other 50%. It's like you are sitting in a pool, and that pool has a certain, chemical makeup, a certain astrological makeup. Well, of course, that's going to affect you in some way. It's going to affect people differently, and the part that is you, this is your past, your history, your memories, your past lives, if that's something that you believe in, your karma, that all interfaces in a way that is unique to you. So change is never easy, and what do they say about a diamond? It's just a piece of carbon that withstood a lot of pressure and probably butchering the quotes. So these are moments where we have a choice. I mean, I can't control the astrology, so that part we don't have a choice in, but how we show up, how we are present, how we let it to affect us, to change us, to be alchemy. The alchemy in revealing perhaps who you truly are and revealing something that you haven't been seeing about yourself. And this could be a very positive thing. This is not necessarily a negative time, but I just want to just kind of say, yes, of course, it could be a very stressful time, very emotional time. Something that I've said to friends and even said to clients, just feels like everything's on fire. But, that's my experience because I'm a fixed sign, and a lot of the astrology is happening in the fixed signs at the moment. Don't worry, we will go through that. And just to sort of recap on last week, we had a very rare, how rare, Katie? I think it was 1855 was the last time we had the Mars and Uranus and the North Node all in Taurus. That's a long time ago. It's hard to really get a day-by-day context for what this astrology is. This is the kind of stuff that makes sense in hindsight. When we look back, and that's why in my work, I always get us to look back. And even though I have a steel trap memory, not everybody does. So use these opportunities to take notes. You put in your Google Calendar or whatever you use, or you can journal. And so you can start to connect the dots, because astrology is not a singular event. It's not that we wake up the next day and suddenly it's like these little parses of different things. It's just all these intersecting energies, and how like this big clock, this big cosmic clock, and that's what astrology is. It's a clock, it's time, it's how we live time, and where are the hands pointed now? Well, they could be pointing to making massive changes, but you don't want to get out of bed, or you're really struggling. And I say that, of course, with compassion. So how does this time instead be something internally that shifts and change instead of externally? And honestly, I know this from personal experience, external changes often happen after we make the internal changes. And it's sort of spiritual physics. It's like internally you've made the shift, and then your physical life has to sort of reorient itself and catch up. So the relationship that comes, not because one day it just comes, is typically preceded by some sort of shift and change or a desire, and we have to really want something, of course, if it's right for us, if it's the right time. But a lot of the times, and I say this, with personal experience, we are in our heads and not in our body, and maybe this week is a good time to be embodied, especially with so much astrology focused on Taurus, the sign of the body, being in the body. So yeah, let's sort of do a quick recap, and of course to reintroduce myself to those who don't know who I am. My name is Katie Sweetman, and I'm an astrologer and psychic medium here in the New York City area, and every week we gather live. So yeah, I use astrology as my primary tool, but I'm also an intuitive. My guides talk to me, and that's a dynamic that I bring to my client work and even to you all. Even though I'm just talking about the astrology, they're sometimes just whispering in my ears. But the goal, of course, is to have the weather, but then what do we do with it? And that part's on you. And if you're the sort that really wants to take this time and use it to its maximum capacity, it really can profoundly change and transform you. We got a lot of Saturn to talk about this week, my favorite planet, and hopefully you're like, no, Katie, Saturn's not my favorite planet right now. It's still my favorite planet, even though it's sort of sitting in this long drawn out square to my sun. But yeah, let's kind of recap. So yesterday we had Mars square Saturn. I just want to kind of quickly go back to that because it's a major alignment in astrology. The Mars-Saturn cycle traditionally doesn't have the best, people don't think about it well. It's, in traditional astrology, Mars is called the lesser malefic, and Saturn is called the greater malefic. So I think just from a traditional standpoint, Mars, whether it's a Mars-Saturn conjunction, Mars-Saturn square, Mars-Saturn opposition, and then the final square before the next conjunction, it's a cycle of manifestation, and it could be a cycle of manifestation that's really bringing in some sort of deeper karmic lessons. I have Mars square Saturn. It's not an easy combination to have natally, but if you work it, it works. It's a powerhouse. You're taking the energies of Mars, you're taking the energies of Saturn, and you're building and constructing. And Mars is very physical, so it's the people that really enact or create something in their physical lives. But it's Saturn. It's this really sometimes slow force, and sometimes astrology will say that Mars wants to pump the gas and Saturn wants to hit the brakes. And I just think we all have to find the balance. Don't forget Mars is exalted in Capricorn, so that's why I sort of scratch my head when everybody gets afraid about Mars-Saturn aspects. But hey, but it is an intense astrology, and it is on some level an astrology that we carry into this week, because it's a week where we have to really make sure everything's in alignment, in balance, because we've got some Sun opposite Saturn later this week, which we'll of course talk about, and then we have the Aquarius full moon, which is basically a spotlight on Saturn's time in Aquarius. So we come out of this intense week. We had some Uranus aspects, we had some Saturn aspects, and something else and we had a fixed Grand Cross. And I actually put an explanation because somebody, I think a couple people asked about this. In astrology, there's something called either crosses or grand squares, depending on what terminology you use. They're the same thing. Squares are the energy of matter and manifestation. Trines, which everybody thinks is great, which they are, is the energy of vision, spirit. It's non-manifested. So we have the vision of something that we want. Trine, there seems like everything is the possibility, but this is why I don't overly focus on trines, because trines can easily pass us by. We have this great vision, but then we don't put the work in. Mars and Saturn square. So as we got up to last weekend, we had a Scorpio moon that was making something called a fixed Grand Cross. You had planets in Taurus, planets in Leo, planets in Scorpio, the moon, and then you had Saturn in Aquarius. And that sort of is, these 4 signs, they're very powerful. They talk about this wheel and sort of this cross of manifestation and creation. And you have Scorpio and Taurus, these 2 signs that stand opposite one another. And Taurus is about the fertility and sort of that magic of fertility of life, of something coming back into creation. And the Scorpio is the decay and death and rebirth. I mean, these are pretty primal forces. So we sort of went into last weekend sort of standing at these 4 corners of just really primal energy. It's not easy. But I had a conversation with a friend of mine, and she had a shift, and that's a positive manifestation of this energy. She was able to really shift through an emotional block. So maybe it worked out for you, or maybe it was just pretty intense all around. Anyway, so we go into this week, and it's not more of the same, but it sort of builds on something that's already been happening in August. So we get to Tuesday, August 9th, and Venus opposes Pluto. So it's just kind of easy to forget about Venus right now, because Venus has been behind the scenes in Cancer, but Venus is about to leave Cancer, and it's going to oppose Pluto as it does so. And so there's an element this week that's about relationships. You can say, well, where's relationships in all of this? But Aquarius doesn't seem like a relationship sign. Aquarius is the last air sign. It's not about you-me relationships. It's the broader framework and fabric of relationships. So with later this week, we're going to have Sun opposite Saturn. To some degree, this is a week we have to get our relationships back in order, back in balance. And I'm saying that to some context to Venus opposite Pluto on August 9th. And Venus, it's about relationships. It's what we love, what we value, what we want to spend time and money on, what we want to invest in. Pleasure, security. It's the ruler of the Taurus North Node, and it's opposing Pluto. So Pluto likes to hold the mirror to things. It says, oh, you want a relationship? Well, I'm going to show you exactly what's in the way of relationships. And so Pluto may show us things that are not pretty. It's sort of the dark heart that's sometimes at the core of things. And Pluto shows us these things, and sometimes things we don't want to look at, and sometimes the things that we don't want to accept that's in ourselves. Oh, I could never do that. I'm pretty sure you could. And Pluto is happy to remind you of that fact. But with that comes this alchemy that Pluto is available for us, this sort of transformation and reformation. We put consciousness and awareness and light onto sometimes the darkest parts of ourselves, and even the darkest parts of ourselves that show up in relationships, all relationships, not just romantic relationships, but there are themes about power and control and value and manipulation, obsession, jealousy, and all these things that Pluto wants to purge from Venus's experiences before the planet goes into Leo later this week. Then we get into August 10th, and the Leo sun comes up to the lunar node. So it's making what's called an exact square to the lunar nodes. If you're scratching your head thinking, Katie, I do not know what the lunar nodes are. The lunar nodes, they are not planets. They are 2 points in the sky, always exactly opposite, and they make eclipses happen. As of, I think it's January 19th, don't quote me, but certainly since January of 2022, the lunar nodes have been in Taurus and Scorpio. Our collective destiny right now is to sort of head, air quotes, head towards Taurus, to integrate the Taurus archetype. What is that? It's stability, security. It is the opposite in the sense of a duality of experience from Scorpio. Scorpio is insecurity. It's sort of that anxiety that comes because we realize that life is finite, that sometimes life brings us difficult situations. But Taurus is about the solid earth beneath our feet. So we are being collectively and individually pushed to regain solid ground. That sounds nice. Sort of the irony in all of this is that Uranus, the planet Uranus, has been in Taurus since May of 2018, March 2019. Uranus is not solid ground. It's revolutions, awakenings, reinventions, shocks, transformations, and sort of this opening and evolution of consciousness. So it's not that we can't have solid ground right now, but it has to be on a very different ground than maybe that we've been reaching for a long time, or maybe even all of our lives. So we need the solid ground of Taurus. We just have to do it differently. Yes, reinvent yourself. You literally have, to go back to that, image of the fixed cross, the four forces of creation and manifestation. What do you want to manifest? And I don't mean this in some sort of a law of attraction, let's have a Ferrari manifestation. It's just like, what do you want for your life? What do you want to transform and reform? What within yourself is in the way? And creation needs to feel like birth. I don't care if you don't have that equipment, if you do, but it's a primal archetypical energy. And so you have, the fixed grand cross, and yes, it's intense, but birth, the creation of life, the destruction of life, it's intense stuff. We think of how volcanoes, Scorpio, can create the fertile silt that Taurus can grow new life. So yeah, this is a week where we can birth something, we can transform something, we can bring something into manifestation, but we have to, at the same time, we have to be real. It can't be from the old playbook. It can't be from the past. And if it means really sitting with our fears and our insecurities, South Node is in Scorpio, how do you let that all go? I realize that is the $1 million question. Everybody has their own answer. But that's sort of as we come to this crossroads this week, as the sun makes the exact square to the lunar nodes. And this is the official midpoint between the eclipses, which means that we are halfway, 3 months in, 3 months out between the eclipses of April, May 2022 and November of 2022. October 25th is going to be a Scorpio solar eclipse, hooray. And November 8th is going to be a Taurus lunar eclipse. So we're right in the middle. We're in that sort of interstitial point between two containers of time, sort of turning a corner, that between something that opened up in April 30th was the solar eclipse, and then this brings us to the Scorpio solar eclipse on October 25th. I think that's 2 degrees of Scorpio. So these are potent power points, and this is, I'm not saying anything about the Lion's Gate. I'm just talking astrology. This is something that's particular to this year, not every year. And so this is a time where things want to come in and come out of your life. So use it well, but at the same time, and I made this comment when I sort of explained the fixed grand cross to people, we can be in recognition of these forces of creation. We have to understand they don't belong to us. They are us, but they don't belong to us. And at the same time, you are the stars of you. But there are forces that are so much greater than you. And that's the perk of being a Scorpio, is that we get to remind everybody that one day you're going to die. And that's not something that we have control over, but that's something that's just inherent to life. So yeah, it's a really potent week. And we've got this eclipse energy that's coming in. And eclipse energy, it marks the narrative of our life. It's not necessarily bad things, despite the press. Eclipses, they can herald the birth of a child, they can herald a marriage, they can herald the change of a career, or even the accolades and the recognition. Sometimes when you see people who get rewarded or in the public eye, that there's usually an eclipse that's not that far behind, because it really does talk about these major points in the narrative of your life, the narrative of the year. I'm slightly obsessed with eclipses, but that's not even the main event this week. It's the Aquarius full moon on August 11th. So this Aquarius full moon It's not that far away from Saturn in Aquarius. Saturn is presently about 22 degrees of Aquarius. This full moon is going to be at 19, so it's not that far away. And if you think about it, this is, what is it? This is August. I got to do some quick math in my brain. What is it? It's 4 months till March. Wait, that's not right. I can't do math when I'm in this sort of mental space. But between now and March, this is Saturn's last stretch through Aquarius. It's not going to return to Aquarius for another 30 years. So this full moon, in a way, puts in a spotlight something that we've been working on since March of 2020. Yes, March, that really interesting month in 2020. That's when Saturn first entered Aquarius. It did go in, it went out and on 1st of July of 2020, and it was back, I think it was like 17th of July, 19th of July, 2020. And Aquarius is systems. It is the systems, the invisible systems that our lives run on. It could be the social contract, the agreements that we all have. It's the sort of the ideology that things run on, but it's the invisible systems of our lives, and it's what connects us. It's sort of these invisible threads that connect everybody. And we've seen how since 2020, there's been a very stark divide between one expression of Saturn Aquarius, social isolation, distancing, sort of the isolation of technology and some other things. And then we have the other side of Saturn Aquarius. It's where we've really worked to build new infrastructure, new technological infrastructure. But at the same time, we're really dealing with a lot of greater physical infrastructure issues. I think that's kind of speaks also to Pluto over in Capricorn, but that's just a personal astrological opinion. But this full moon is sort of saying to you, like, who are your friends? Who is your community? How have things shifted since 2020? And I mean beyond the obvious. I think 2020 presented a problem, however you want to look at that, and then we've spent individually, collectively, spent the last couple of years answering, or sort of addressing that problem. And on some level, it is about connection. It is about the connection, the connectivity of our lives, the connectivity of one another. And I remind people when I talk about Saturn, because it is exalted in Libra, it's about equity, fairness, and balance. Saturn reminds us through the sign of Libra, it's a sign of exaltation, that life needs balance. Without balance, everything falls apart. And that's where we see Saturn in its detriment in Aries. That's where Saturn tries to do everything itself and realizes that that's not a good recipe for long-term success. So yeah, our lives need balance regardless of what you believe in. It's sort of the homeostasis, if that's even a word, of life. And your life needs balance. Every aspect of your life needs balance, whether it's your physical health, your relationships, whether it's your career, and how do you put things back into balance? Because Saturn will easily show us where things are not sustainable. And so there's this time when we're really hopefully, but maybe if we're aware of it, very aware of Saturn's time in Aquarius since 2020, because by March of 2023, I think it's the 4th of March of 2023, Saturn will be in Pisces, where it will be for another 2.5, 3 years. So this is pretty much the home stretch. And this is a time where this full moon is conjunct Saturn in that very classic sense of Saturn says yes to some things and it says no to the things that aren't working. This may be a full moon that really puts in a sharp focus the things that are working and the things that are not working. You may, on a positive side, like it might be a time where things are coming into manifestation in your life. You are getting clear about what you want for the future. Aquarius, you're more aware of the social causes and social issues that connect us all. You're aware of the power of community. And I'm even having a conversation with a friend a couple hours ago, how since 2020, there are way more people in my life. And because I really worked to create more connection in my life after being, certainly in 2020, being in my apartment for a year alone, and realizing the importance of community and having a really strong, solid community. in life. The other thing about this full moon is it makes a square to Uranus, and it's sort of this reminder that in 2021 we had 3 Saturn-Uranus squares, which was sort of this really intense cosmic force of like pulling us into one new life and like pulling us back into an old life, and we're really feeling the stress and the strain of these two halves. And this is a time where we're really feeling that push and pull of Saturn square Uranus. Even though they're not going to be in an exact formation this year, they do come pretty close in October, November with the eclipses. So that energy, it demands reformation, it demands reinvention, it wants to do things differently. And I know personally, during the second Saturn-Uranus square, I moved out of Brooklyn, a place I never thought I would move. It was sort of this realization I had to go someplace else if I wanted to have the things that I was realizing were very important. So really pay attention to the stories and the themes that you're navigating this week, because they're really connected to something larger. We can't compartmentalize the lessons or the insights and the realizations, because it is part of a story that's been going on since 2020 and a story that's been going on since 2018, 2019, and even harkening back to these really intense points in February, June, and December of 2021. The other thing that's happening on the 11th is that Venus goes into Leo. So Venus is going to join the rodeo. It's going to start to pick up on these aspects to Saturn and Uranus. Mars will eventually leave Taurus on August 20th. We'll talk about that next week. There's just way too much to go through. At the end of this week, on the 14th, Saturn does make its annual opposition to Saturn. Wait, did I say that right? The Sun makes its annual opposition to Saturn, and this is a big checkpoint for the year. It's always a big checkpoint whenever we have hard aspects to Saturn. The conjunction would have been probably back in February, so in a way we were going back to February and sort of the things that we said yes to or no to. And then finally for this week we have Mars trine Pluto on the 14th. So Mars, it's it's in an Earth sign, it's in Taurus, and it's picking up on Pluto in Capricorn. So that's a very powerful energy. Typically, it's the type of Mars, Pluto, you see that a lot in athletes. These are people with a strong drive for competition, a lot of energy. So maybe by extension, we have a lot of energy this week. But I think this is a week in whole that really wants a lot of practical application, really sort of a maturity, and perhaps even a sobering maturity in various aspects of our life. In the show notes, I have more information on Saturn. I even did a 2-hour webinar on Saturn back in June, I believe it was. Actually, that turned out really well. No, it was July, because I was coming off of COVID. But I'm going to be doing, just kind of quick teaser, I'm going to be doing a 12-week Saturn masterclass starting on September 17th. We're going to have a weekly journey for Saturn through the 12 zodiac signs and the lessons that each zodiac signs can teach us. I'm going to be releasing more information, so sign up for my newsletter if you want to definitely get the first information about it, because I am going to incentivize signing up early. So more on that later, but let's look at what this means for you for the week of August 4th, that's not correct, August 8th through 14th, 2022. So Aries, your planet Mars continues to be in Taurus. So this is just on a nuts and bolts level, a time for you to get very nuts and bolts, to look at the practical concerns of your life, focus on money, income, material stability, material security. The thing is that Mars has been in a little bit of a tight spot with Uranus. So last week you probably had an awakening, or something shifted, or maybe a challenge, or maybe the energy is seated inside of you and is waiting for the right moment to open up. It could be an internal shift, but it's about self-worth and value as well. The other thing is that Mars does make this trine to Pluto this week, so it's a week where you have a lot of energy and drive. Give it an outlet. Mars is a very physical planet, and when it doesn't have an outlet, it gets cranky. It feels blocked and frustrated. But that said, this full moon is in a way reminding you that you're starting to come to a culmination of this period in your life since 2020 that's been about friends, community, social systems, social networks, and even looking towards the future. So this full moon puts your friendships, your community in the spotlight and maybe says to you, who are your friends? Who are your friends? After 2 years and whether it's COVID or other things, how have you lost friendships or made friendships stronger, and who are the people that are with you now versus when things started in 2020. This full moon does make a square to Uranus, and by extension makes a square to your planet Mars. So this is really about your value, the value of yourself in the world, the value in your community and your friends. And so this is a bit of an intense week for you, Aries, but it's really about setting yourself up for the future. Venus is one of your relationship planets, and it does go into Leo, so you are entering in a 3-4 week period that's about fun and romance. I guess that's pretty nice in comparison to this really intense personal alchemy that you are going through, Aries. Taurus. Okay, so maybe go back and listen to last week's update. Your planet Venus, it's about to leave Cancer, it's going to go into Leo, and for you, Leo is your sign of home and family. Am I getting that right? Yes, I'm getting that right. So it's been a little bit of a busy time for you, Taurus, but now it's going to, especially as you go past the full moon, really focus on home and family as you go into the rest of August. Okay, so there's that. The other thing is that this full moon puts the spotlight on your career. Well, it could be career, it could be your place in the world, it could be your ambitions, it could be the title after your name. But this is by and large a part of your chart that really demands that you step into a role and you really take duties and responsibilities seriously. But you've heard me say this before, and it sort of encapsulates Saturn's time in your 10th sign. It's what do you want to be when you grow up, Taurus? And I don't care if you're 80 years old or if you're 20 years old, Saturn has been really pushing you to get clear about your place in the world. Whatever it is, if you want to make candles, great. If you want to run a business, great. If you want to live in a treehouse, great. Whatever works for you, whatever your place is in the world, but you've got to get clear about it and you have to sort of stand at it. And Saturn, just being Saturn, either says yes or no. This could be a yes/no week, Taurus. And do keep in mind, you continue to have Uranus in your sign. It will be in Taurus until 2025, 2026. I know, that's 7 years in total. So this is really continues to push the alchemy of change and transformation. I know you're tired, Taurus. Maybe Venus going to Leo will give you some fun, some pleasure, going back to the things that really matter. But you are with the eclipses in Taurus and Scorpio. You're at that crossroads between the eclipses you had April, May, and the eclipses that you're going to have in October, November. So pay attention to what's going on, because it could be a preview of events to come. That's the thing about eclipses and time. It sort of shows us that time is not so linear. It could give us some insight into what's going on in October, November. Gemini, so a lot of the action is happening elsewhere for your sign in comparison to, let's say, the other signs versus you. But this Aquarius full moon does bring to a head these, I think, deeper existential questions that you've been working through over the past couple of years, Gemini. So on one hand, Saturn, and then even by extension the full moon, Saturn is asking you, what do you believe in? What is your truth? What is your convictions? What do you stand for? What is your sort of framework for right and wrong? Whether it's right and wrong because you were taught that or because it comes from something within. But on some level, this full moon is about faith. Do you have faith? What does faith even mean? And it's my feeling about Saturn in the 9th, whether you have it there at birth or whether you have it there by transit like you do right now, Gemini, is that it all has to come down to some sense of mission and personal philosophy. And certainly by the time you get to 2023, Saturn's going to really be like, okay, well, what does it all stand for? Like, what are you rallying your life around? What's your core mission, your core beliefs? And maybe you're not so sure right now, Gemini, but you do have this push and pull that's happening between Uranus and your 12th, which is about inner faith, inner truth. It's not faith and truth that's derived from the external world, whether it's a teaching or a religion or your experiences out in the world. Is faith and truth derived from within. So this is a time that's really trying to shift and shake and open up the way that you see things. Mercury is recently in Virgo. It went to Virgo last week. So this is a time that's really about home and family and making sure you're focusing on your roots and foundation. And maybe you need that because you need that anchorage as you navigate sort of these bigger existential questions. Cancer. So Cancer, you've heard me talk about the 8th room, and I know some of you are my clients and you are really tired of the 8th room right now. That's because Aquarius is Cancer's 8th sign. And when I talk about astrology, when I teach astrology, I want people to understand that within the structure of the chart, the house, it's a space. So even though we're talking about your personal astrology from the perspective of your sun sign, even from your rising sign, if you're a Cancer rising, you have been occupying a very particular space in your astrology since March of 2020 / December of 2020. It's what I call the 8th room. It's the place in your astrology house that's designed to transform you, to confront you, to test you, to make you do the work so that you reveal what's within. And it's through that work that you can gain the light and the truth and the knowledge of the 9th. Hopefully not getting too off topic, but this is a time when Saturn is saying, after everything you've been through, what does it all mean? And maybe in a way, these sort of crises of faith that can happen even when Saturn's in the 8th. It's about power, control, money, resource, finance, assets. But that's what the dark heart, of course, that is in all of us, because we all have that inner darkness. That's what Scorpio teaches us, but it's just how much do we let that darkness rule us? So the time in the 8th is when we really have to face the part of ourselves that we disconnected from, that we've disassociated, that we've cut ourselves off from, but in fact is making way more decisions for our lives than we care to admit. So you are starting to come to the end of this phase. I know you've got March 4th on your calendar. That's when Saturn goes into Pisces, but this is a full moon that's about the starkness of this time and sort of sometimes the sobering truths and the sobering decisions that come out of this time. And not, just to kind of say this is about the transformations that need to happen. You also have Venus going into Leo, so Venus is the sign of home and family for you. So maybe you could really use a little bit joy and pleasure and fun. Certainly enjoying the pleasures of life. Things that you buy, things that you invest in. But that said, this is a crossroads for you. And I think this is a full moon that's really pushing on some deep emotional material. And to the best that you can, have support, have people you trust, reach out, because it's my personal belief that we can't do the 8th room alone. We really need to have somebody that's been through it to help lead us through it. Leo. Happy birthday, Leo. What a heck of a time to have a birthday. If your birthday is I guess around this full moon, it's going to be plus or minus a few days. It's going to be a really powerful birthday year for you. But this is a time when, of course, it's the renewal. It's the time when the sun has returned to your sign. We had the Leo new moon back on July 28th. And Aquarius is your relationship sign. So whether you are a Leo, whether you are Leo rising, or you have a major point in Leo, this has really been the past 2.5 years about relationship. Saturn in the relationship sign reminds us that we can't do life alone. In fact, it is the antithesis of life to do life alone. Life is, it needs connection, whether it's two cells talking to each other or two people in connection. And so Saturn has been taking a critical look at your relationship since March of 2020 / December of 2020. For some people, this has been the start of a serious relationship. Somebody has come into their life with whom this person wants to make a deeper Saturnian commitment, perhaps a marriage, whatever works for you, move in together. And then, Saturn is basically saying to you, okay, well, what is it? Like, are we saying yes? Or are we saying no? What is this forming? Saturn loves relationship. It wants partnership and connection. So maybe this is a week where partnership and connection is forming, even though it doesn't seem like on paper with all the other astrology that would be what's happening. But on another level, it's about putting things back into balance. And Leo, just a reminder, Uranus continues to be in your career sign. It's been there since 2018. You have to reinvent your career. I cannot stress that highly. For some of you, you get it. What does this mean? It means that whether this means changing your career or your approach, it has to come from a very different place. If fear and insecurity is in the way, that is the thing that needs to be reinvented, for example. And the idea, in theory, is by 2025, 2026, your professional life looks radically different. But this is a powerful crossroads when Saturn may say yes or no. Saturn being Saturn, but sort of Saturn's ultimate desire is to have things in balance. Venus will go into Leo on the 11th, and so it's nice to have Venus on your side. Gives you a little bit of a little flirtatiousness, a little bounce in your step, especially as you navigate some pretty intense astrology. Comes after Leo. Virgo. Virgo, we were talking about this last week. Virgo, how your planet, Mercury, is now in Virgo. So this is sort of the start on some level of a personal cycle. It does take about a year for Mercury to make its way through each of the 12 zodiac signs between its forward and retrograde movements. But Mercury has returned home in advance of the Sun arriving in Virgo on, I believe, the 23rd. Of hopefully I'm not wrong, the 23rd of August. So it's about new beginnings, Virgo. It's about what do you want to sort of start working towards, moving, and on one level, this is just sort of some advanced fact-finding because you're going to have this. It's like your Sun is still in what's called your 12th, so it's like you can't push too hard right now, Virgo. You still have to do the planning, rest, reflect, let go of the stuff that you need to let go of so you can step more fully into this new phase of your life. This full moon is in something called your health signs, the sign of health, work, projects, service. It's the part of your chart that really is the operations of your chart. And it's a time when that full moon is really putting a spotlight on how everything runs and flows or how everything doesn't run and flow. And so you need to really tend to the various systems and networks of your life. This includes your schedule. Your schedule is a system, even though, maybe you follow it rigidly or you don't follow it rigidly. Your health is a system, the sort of the systems of your body, how you take care of your body, the functioning of your body. Your body is very important. Without it, you would not be here. So how do you take care of your health and wellness? And this full moon is putting in a spotlight on a lot of maybe the physical changes that you've had to make since 2020, whether it's changes in diet, changes in health, changes in your day-to-day, or changes in that operational structure of your life. And so Saturn on some level is saying like, all right, show me what you got. So this is a week where you can't just eat sugar every day and think it's going to work out. Saturn's really trying to remind you that there are, healthy, things that we have to do for our health. This full moon does make a square to Uranus, and so that sense of like a lot of the physical shifts in your life have come as you've really started to look at things differently, hopefully, because Uranus is in the part of your chart that talks about what you believe in, what you think it's true, and if you don't think something's possible because you're sort of stuck in your blinders, then it's never going to happen. So this could be a time when you're really trying to awaken to what's possible versus what you thought was possible. Libra, so Venus, your planet, it leaves Cancer, which is your career sign, and it goes into Leo, which is your 11th. So you're sort of going into the rest of August where it's really focusing on friends, community, social connection. Venus coming out of your career sign, you've spent maybe the last few weeks really focusing on your professional life, the duties and responsibilities that you have on a worldly level. And on some level now, with Venus going to Leo, it's like, what's next? So use the rest of August to plan, to think ahead, to vision, to create. Of course, Venus in Leo loves to have fun out in the world. That said, where is this full moon happening? It's happening in your 5th. Your 5th is the sign of self-expression, creativity, talents. It's that area of your chart that reminds you what makes you you. There is only one you in this world, I absolutely assure you. It's like there is an energy inside of you that cannot be duplicated. Call it the soul, call it the spirit, call it whatever. Energy, but that's you. And it's what you take with you to the other side after this life. God forbid, someday. So this has been a time where Saturn's been saying you have to take yourself, take your talents, take whatever is inside of you seriously, including your passions. So this is a time when it's really about this manifestation of these creative projects that maybe you've been working on, or it can be pregnancy, because Saturn in the 5th can sometimes bring pregnancy for those for whom that's relevant. But this full moon does make a square to Uranus, and so it's really pushing and pulling at the part of you that can be a little self-destructive. We all have it inside of us. So if you're trying to create something, be aware of where you are trying to get in the way of that, where you are working against your creativity. But it's really bringing up some deep stuff for you, Libra, and maybe you need to do some soul searching and facing yourself. Of course, have fun. Venus is in Leo. But this is a time when things have to be in order, and you can't let the darker parts of yourself get in the way. Scorpio. So Scorpio, fixed sign, lots of things going on with the fixed signs. And so this full moon is in the part of your chart that talks about family. And it reminds you that over the past couple of years, there's been this greater question that's been about where is home and who is home. Maybe you've made a major move. Maybe you've needed to define who is family or who is the most important people in your life, or even to take your emotional core seriously. But there also may be family responsibilities, familial duties to parents, needing to take care of things, or for some Scorpios, the creation of a family, the start of a family. This is a time for some Scorpios where they need to figure out where they're moving, where's home, maybe even check in with parents if that's relevant to you. For other Scorpios, it's getting into that really weighty emotional core work that you've been doing since 2020. Uranus is in Taurus. It'll be in Taurus until 2025, 2026. So this is about awakening relationship in your life, a very different type of relationship, and allowing people in to that inner core, as scary as it is, Scorpio. Mars, your planet, continues to be in your relationship sign. It's a little bit of a bumpy ride for relationships at the moment. Hopefully that will change when Mars goes into Gemini on the 20th. But it's in a little bit of an intense spot, especially as it goes up to a trine to Pluto. So maybe this could be a week of transformation. But hang in there, Scorpio. I know a lot of things are happening. You have all these intense fixed energies, so it really feels like all 4 areas of your life, the major corners of your life, are very active at the moment. Sagittarius. So Sag, you're not quite in the same boat as some of the other signs. You know, your planet Jupiter continues to be in Aries. It's a time of creativity, self-expression. You do have Uranus in your 6th, so this is about, a lot of this intensity this week is about making positive transformations in the physicality of your life. It could be in your health. Maybe you're going to the gym more. Maybe you're not eating certain things, or maybe the relationship with your body. Of course, everybody's body is different. But the Saturn the Aquarius full moon with Saturn brings to a head a larger story about taking your voice seriously and being the authority in what you have to say. And so whether that means the words out of your mouth have to resonate with your authority. I mean, don't be mean, of course, but this is also a time when you have to take choice seriously. These are really major times of weighing your options and taking your choices seriously. But it's not hitting you in the same way as it is the other signs. Don't wait. Your turn will come. But in the meantime, just really be aware of what you're thinking, writing, communicating, and even choosing. Capricorn, this week is sort of a reminder or sort of an echo back to Saturn square Uranus of 2021. And as I said in my intro, that really intense configuration in 2021, it's still with us. It's not with us the way that it was last year, but it's almost in a way it's come back because this full moon is conjunct Saturn. It's conjunct you in a way. It's sort of putting your life in a spotlight. And it's holding you up against Saturn. And I know you are Capricorn and you're a sign that's about incarnating the mastery of Saturn for better or for worse. But the full moon sort of reminds you to put things into order, put things into balance. That Saturn's watching. I don't mean that in a negative way. It's just sort of like we have to make sure everything is above board. Saturn is in your money sign, so this has been 2 years at this point of really taking a look at money, finance, investments, income, value, worth, and even self-worth. And so Saturn on some level is saying, like, do you take your worth seriously? What is your relationship with your material life? Is your material life in order or is it out of order? Do you need to make some adjustments? And Saturn, you know this, you're ruled by Saturn. Saturn is a yes-no planet. You're going to get your yes-no this week. Saturn is bouncing off of Uranus. It's in your fifth. So remember, Capricorn, this is a larger time of you awakening to who you really are and getting back to the things that really make you passionate. This is the thing about Capricorn. By its instincts, it wants to do everything because it feels like it has to do everything. But do one thing or do a few things and do it well. I think sometimes Capricorn can be a little overwhelmed by all the things that it's trying to do. And maybe that's where the square to Uranus is coming in. It's trying to sort of free you up so you don't get lost in the mix. That's what I got. Aquarius. So you have a full moon in your sign. So this happens around this time every year. Sometimes we even get 2 Aquarius full moons like we did last year, but that's a separate point. So you are in the spotlight. This is going to mean different things to different Aquariuses. And maybe for one Aquarius, it's a level of recognition. For other Aquariuses, their life just feels like it's in the spotlight. Things are loud. And I made this kind of point earlier in the introduction about manifestation and the square and matter. And this is a time where something is manifesting in your life. Now, Saturn is in Aquarius. It's been in Aquarius since March of 2020, December 2020. And so this has been a new time in your life. And I think it's been a little bit hard with Aquarius because it's really just with Saturn being Saturn, it's like the burden of responsibility, the burden of a new phase in your life where you have to take on things. And it can be a little bit sobering if I'm being completely honest. But this full moon is making a square to Uranus. Uranus has been in your 4th since 2018, 2019. There's this change in home and family. And maybe you've made a move, maybe your relationship with your family has greatly changed, your household has changed, or maybe it's something internal, because sometimes Uranus, and certainly with the 4th, it's not external, it's internal. So this is a time when you are trying to liberate yourself from the past, liberate yourself from sort of this heavy emotional energy, and get back to the stability and security of your inner emotional core. But this is a powerful full moon. In Aquarius, you may be at a crossroads. Life may be a bit loud at the moment. It's going to mean different things for different people, but and I've been saying this over and over again, like August is just one of those months. It's really this turning point for a lot of people, and it's preparing us for the eclipses to come. It's preparing us for God knows what, but it's connected to a larger story. And this week in particular, like we're in that interstitial place where the sun is making the square to the lunar node. So things may be coming in and out of your life this week. Thus is the energy of eclipses. But like I said, every Aquarius is going to experience this differently. Pisces. So here we are. You're a sign that's not quite experiencing this astrology like the fixed signs or even the cardinal signs. But where is this happening? So Pisces, let's orient yourself with your planet. Your planet is Jupiter. It's in Aries. And you're experiencing this preview of this time because Jupiter will leave Aries for Pisces and then go back to Aries the end of this year. But this time is really about material stability, material security, and really focusing on the money resource and value part of your life. But then you have this full moon. It's in Aquarius, which is something called your 12th sign. So Aquarius is the sign that comes before you. And I've been saying this from time to time for Pisces, and I'll say it again. Saturn in your 12th, where it has been since March of 2020 / December of 2020, is a time where your life, and I mean this metaphorically, so take a breath, Pisces, your life is coming to an end. This one great chapter of your life, and this is 30-year chapter, is drawing to a close. And this time for Pisces has been different for different Pisces. And for some, it is the need to look back and to look at everything that you've carried and accumulated over the past 20, 30 years. I know it's a long time. But it's like, what do you not want to bring with you into March of 2023? Because when Saturn crosses into Pisces on March 4th of 2023, it's with you. Meaning it's with you into this new cycle of manifestation, this new cycle of your life. So you want to be very mindful of what you're still holding on to. So use this full moon as an inventory. Use it to, like I said, to other signs. Saturn's a very yes/no planet. And maybe you feel like you're really looking at your life, and Saturn's like, yes, no, yeah. And Saturn's not a sentimental planet, but Saturn really wants the best for you, because in its positive facet, it is about the support of life, the container of life, and how our material life can be the support for us to build upon. Well, then there's Uranus, and Uranus is in your third sign. So it's really a time that's about liberating your voice, finding your voice, and maybe on some level finding your intuitive voice. But this is a time, I will add that Mercury is in Virgo. Virgo is a relationship sign. So you've got relationships happening, but the real intensity of this time is about the surrendering, the release, the letting go, and the preparing space, whether it's physical space, emotional space, or spiritual space, for the next phase and chapter of your life. So there you go. There's the 12 signs. You'll all have to let me know how you're doing. This Scorpio is just taking it day by day. Look, astrologers go through intense astrology too. So yeah, that is your look at the astrology of August 8th through 14th, 2022. My name is Katie Sweetman. This has been Empowering Astrology. Follow me online at empoweringastrology.com. A lot of you on the live chat are my clients. I really deeply appreciate you all, and even those that watch this week in and week out, and send your great comments. I really appreciate it. Of course, you can book a consultation with me online at empoweringastrology.com. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Spotify, all the things. And as I alluded to, I'm going to be doing this Saturn Masterclass, 12 weeks starting in September. So if you want the details right away, do sign up for my newsletter. All of these things are in the show notes. So I really look forward to connecting with you all next week. And astrology mostly makes sense in hindsight. And so maybe we'll have a little bit of perspective as we go into next week. So take care. Bye-bye.